This whole presentation is about how to legally avoid the use tax in California on the purchase of an aircraft. And you don't have to be a California resident for this to apply to you. Anything that comes in and out of California within the first 12 months after you take title to it is subject to tax in California by law. We will have a gift card at the end of all three of these. Today's on the interstate commerce test, the one in the future on the principal use test, and the one on after that on the charter test for anyone who attends all three. So make sure that you check in with your email address and the phone number in the chat so that we can get in touch with you to get you the gift card. This Christmas tree represents the story of why I am in the tax business. I was 13 years old. I came down on Christmas morning, and this is what I saw. Jill, what's missing from this picture? Okay.
I don't see any gifts.
Exactly. So imagine I was the second oldest of 8 kids. We all come down for Christmas morning, and there is not one single present under the tree. What a shock that is to, and all of us were born basically 2 years apart. So it was a shock to a whole bunch of little kids when there was no presents under the tree. The one thing that's not in this picture that was in my memory is there was a bunch of little tiny white envelopes hanging all over the tree. And it didn't make any sense to me. So I went up and I found one with my name on it and I opened it, because I never wait for permission. And I looked inside and it told me that sometime in the next 2 weeks, my Christmas present will arrive. And it's going to be, it was a Kodak camera, because at that time I was interested in photography. None of that made any sense to me. I figured maybe somebody had attacked and kidnapped Santa Claus. But by 13 years old, I was too cool to believe in Santa Claus. So I don't actually remember what I thought, but I just knew it was strange. Later, I found out that my father had been in a dispute with the IRS over some unpaid taxes that he'd had with a partner when we lived in Alaska. And what happened was he had a Christmas club set up in the bank to make sure that he had money to buy presents. So someone from the IRS went into the Christmas club and took 100% of the money out. I think it was in the second week of December. And in my opinion, that was a gutless puke move. What makes them think that a guy that has 8 kids is going to run and hide from them? It's pretty hard to take a group of that many people and disappear ourselves. So I thought it was a gutless move, and it has forever made me very agitated with people who work at taxing agencies. Since then, I have discovered that 98% of the people that work at tax agencies are just good people trying to do the job right and get the answers right. But there's always that 2% who screw it up for everybody. And I'll trust you. Trust me, they screwed up my Christmas. I didn't like the fact that I didn't get any presents. The 6485.1 is the fraud penalty in the California sales tax law. And just take a few seconds to read through that. I'll read it out loud. Any purchaser of a vehicle, vessel, or aircraft who registers it outside the state of California for the purpose of evading the payment of taxes due under this part, that's just their legalese, shall be liable for a penalty of 50% of any tax determined to be due on the sales price of the vehicle, vessel, or aircraft. What's missing from that? It doesn't say anything about you have to be a California resident. The way the state of California interprets this, all transactions of all aircraft, vessels, and vehicles, if you come into the state of California even once in the first 12 months after you take possession, you're potentially subject to tax. When they discover you, and I'll give you an opportunity to discover how they do that. When they discover you, they can send you an assessment. The minute they send you an assessment, you by law have to respond to that by filing either paying the tax or by supporting a claim for an exemption. And supporting claim for an exemption is what our company, Aero Marine Tax Professionals, does. The one we're going to cover today is commercial interstate flight hours test. On February 23rd, we're going to cover the principal use test. On March 23rd, we're going to cover the common carrier test. So you're going to get an opportunity to understand fully all of the possible exemptions for aircraft in the state of California. And if you stick with us to all three of those, we'll have a special gift for you. So here we go. We're going to talk about just the commercial interstate flight hours test today. All of the restrictions that apply to the principal use test do not apply to the commercial interstate hours, because just please come to the next one and look at it, and you'll understand what that statement means. And we're doing that on February 23rd. There are three things that you must do in order to use this particular test period for a claim for an exemption, and they must be done in the following order. First step is you must take possession of the aircraft while it's physically out of the state. It doesn't mean you can't acquire an airplane that's currently in California. It just means that as a condition of your purchase offer, you require the seller to deliver it to you at a point out of state. Up until last year, we did all of our out-of-state, we recommended all of our out-of-state deliveries to be done in Oregon. Oregon in 2020 passed a new law that any aircraft over the price of $1 million has a special tax. So in deciding where to take possession, we will need to know the information of what the purchase price is, but it still requires an out-of-state possession. Also, if the plane is in California and you make a requirement of the seller to deliver it to you, you or anyone, nor anyone who works for you, can ride on the airplane from inside California to the out-of-state possession point. If the state of California finds out about that, they will charge you with exercising a right of ownership. And that means to them that you took possession of the aircraft inside of California. And that means it's immediately taxable, no matter what you do after that. The second qualifying step is a step called first functional use. And it has slightly different meanings depending upon the aircraft. But for the purposes of this discussion, let's say you took possession in Montana. So step one, you take possession in Montana. A first functional use flight has to be outside of Montana, not yet into California, and wherever you land has to be for a business purpose. So it's an interstate flight. The definition of interstate starts in one state, ends in a different state or different country. For it be a first functional use, all that is true, and then you add where you land has to be for a business purpose. If you're buying an aircraft that has a jet or a turbine engine, there must be a passenger on that flight from the out-of-state possession to the first business use. But if it's a piston engine and has more than 6 seats, that you also have to have a passenger. If it's a piston engine and it's less than 6 seats, no passenger is required on that. And someday when we get to know each other better, I'll tell you the really crappy story about how they come up with first functional use, because it was all BS. The third and final step is that you enter California. Wherever you land first in California, you buy fuel. That fuel ticket has a date, location, and tail number on it. That date starts a 6-month-long test. None of the hours involved in these qualifying steps are part of the test period. However, if you leave any of these steps out, you can't get into the test period. It's taxable without question. So let's say in the first 6 months that you fly 100 hours, and I'll pick 100 so that I can do the math easy.
Did you say that the first functional flight needs to be a business flight, have a business purpose?
Absolutely. It doesn't qualify if the city that you land in is where you're going to do business.
Mhm.
Is that the only question you had at this point?
Yes.
Okay. So the
Right.
entire basis of the test period is based on the flight hours, and you don't start accumulating those flight hours
Mhm.
until the first flight where you take off from your landing in California. So that's when you start accumulating the hours, because the test period doesn't start until you enter. Now, here's a Murphy's Law warning. When you bring it into California, don't let it just sit on the ground, because if anything happens to your airplane, if somebody steals it, if a hurricane, or in California, there's an earthquake and it tips it over, it's taxable because the test period's already started, but you have zero qualifying hours. So make very certain that when you first enter California, that I like the same day, but maybe wait a day or two, but that period of time is danger for you, to make an out-of-state business trip. And if you're in California, let's say you're in Northern California, somewhere in the Bay Area, like maybe Marin area, like at Novato Airport, just fly up to Reno and do business if you can do that. And we will always determine that in our discussions with you. But the state's minimums are 50% of the total amount of flight hours, and we talked about how to calculate those, have to be for business. We raise the bar to 60%. We do that to protect you from you, okay? I know that most people who fly their own airplanes and have their own successful businesses are classic A types, which means that you have been successful by doing it your own way. You try that with the state of California, you're going to be known as a taxpayer. Okay. The other reason why I raise it to 60% is if you're a pilot, you're by definition, you're used to pushing the envelope, so to speak. And if I tell you 50% and you bring it in at 51, the tax auditor is going to start salivating, because he knows he only has to throw out one or two of your flights and he gets to collect the tax from you. So we shoot everything with a 10% margin of error. And in general, that 10% margin of error will overcome any natural laziness that a tax auditor might have. Does that all make sense to you, Jill?
Yes.
Okay. Any questions about, so do you feel that you know enough about the interstate commerce test period that you could try it?
No.
Okay.
I've done it. I've actually done it before, but
And successfully or unsuccessfully?
successfully, but it was touch and go.
That's a good aircraft term. So what other information about this specific kind of test period can I give you?
So I understand about the 50% of flight hours need to be in interstate commerce during that 6-month test period. So sometimes people will go on a business flight, but they might take some friends along. And so does that make a difference? Is the primary purpose of the flight what is important, or do you have to count the
That's a great question.
the occupied seat hours, or
What you're talking about, all of those things that you're bringing up are IRS concepts relative to depreciation and IRS taxes. For the purpose of California sales and use tax, it makes no difference. The amount of passengers or the seat mile.
okay.
They're two different taxes. Sales and use tax is a tax based on the transaction. The airport that you primarily hangar the aircraft at in California, that county determines the sales tax rate, whether it's 8 1/4 or 8 1/2 or 9 1/4 or 14, whatever county you're in. And the questions that the other questions you're asking is it makes a huge difference to the IRS.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Any other answers that I can give you to help you?
So it is determined, the purpose of the flight is just determined by you look at the primary purpose of the flight. You could be going on a business flight and my client, for instance, took 6 friends with him on his jet.
It caused a problem for him, probably, IRS wise, but it
Yeah.
caused no problem
Yeah,
on
yeah.
the interstate commerce test.
Okay.
Got it?
Yeah, thank you.
You have any other questions? I want to get 100% of your questions answered because it's you're helping all the rest of the audience. So this is your time.
Let's see. And the other thing I was curious about. Oh, so this is another IRS concept that probably that may or may not apply. We have, for the IRS purposes, you have business, you have personal, and then you have this sort of other category. It could be investment, like you, but for IRS purposes, investment is not the same as business. Now,
Okay.
for sales tax purposes, like if you're just you're flying to look at a piece of property you might buy to hold for investment purposes. You're flying to Montana to look at a ranch that you might want to invest in. Not for business.
What time do you want to go to Montana to look at our new ranch?
What time? In the summer.
Okay, I agree with that. I don't want to go any place that it snows. When I was young, I lived in Alaska. I learned to really hate snow. But most of that stuff only applies to IRS things. So are you a CPA?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay. I thought so.
Yeah.
So you're trying to mix the sales tax world with the IRS rules.
Yeah, I'm trying to compare and to understand the IRS. As you know, the IRS, I mean, you got the FAA, the IRS, and the State Board of Equalization, right? And you've got
it's no longer called the Board of Equalization. It's called the CDTFA, which stands for the
California.
Yeah,
that's right.
Department
I'm
of
old
Tax
school.
and Fee Administration.
Yeah.
Just
So
a
yeah,
typical deal.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's important you consider all three of those aspects.
Yeah, we play this. Jill and I play this with our clients. This huge whack-a-mole game. So you create a strategy to solve an IRS problem that might create a problem for you in your sales tax thing. So it's just constantly looking at all of the things that are possibly can be done. And the best way to accomplish it, if you're thinking of buying an airplane, is to get Jill, me, a property tax guy, all of us on the phone at the same time, because each time one of us proposes a way to handle something and the other person knows it creates a problem for you in their tax area, we'll get it all solved that way. That is absolutely the best way to do your strategic planning with all those people on the phone at the same time. You agree with that, Jill?
Oh, of course.
Absolutely. Yeah, especially if they hire you, right?
Sure.
Tom?
Yes.
This is Laura. I have a quick question regarding the flight logs. I think I've done a couple of these, and when you turn in the flight logs, do they need to be signed by the pilot?
Great question. Yes, they're going to ask you for that. It's the best thing. And while we're talking about logs, they also hate stacked logs. So if a guy was flying from, say, Sacramento to Miami and he landed at two places, typically people.
Tell him and try to get rid of it. I'm trying to listen on a Zoom meeting.
Okay, I'm sorry. Don't put that continuous flight on one line. Every takeoff and every landing should be on a separate line, even though they're just fuel stops. They hate stacked logs.
Got it. Okay.
Does that help?
Yes,
Laura,
it
can
does.
you turn your camera on?
You know what? I'm sorry. I don't have my laptop. I'm working from home. I don't have a camera at the moment.
What do you do for a living, Laura?
I work for a CPA firm for BizChat.
Awesome.
And
awesome. Okay. So, any other questions at this point? This is how to connect with us. Can everybody read that okay? Give me a thumbs up if you can see that, because it's a little fuzzy on my screen, but it's pretty small.
I don't know where.
Hey, Tom, you need to click it. It's a video.
Oh, good thing we have Dallas here, right?
This is my 7th aircraft that I just purchased. I originally was with a firm in Florida, was not terribly happy with the experience I had with them. I was fortunate enough to meet Tom and Aero Marine Tax Professionals. My name is Rick Capretta. I'm the president of Capretta Properties, Inc. I'm in the business of real estate development. The reason I got into private aviation was because of the flexibility I needed to visit sites across the Western United States in cities such as Phoenix, Albuquerque, Colorado, et cetera. And also just from a love of flying. So I've been a private pilot for 28 years. I flew right seat probably literally 20 years prior to getting my license. So with a business partner and early in my life with my neighbor. This is my 7th aircraft that I just purchased. I originally was with a firm in Florida, was not terribly happy with the experience I had with them. I was fortunate enough to meet Tom and Aero Marine Tax Professionals at a airplane convention approximately, I'd say about 10 or 12 years ago, and we've now done 3 transactions with your firm. I decided to hire Tom and Aero Marine because of Tom's extensive experience in California with the taxing authorities up in Sacramento. Also, I felt very comfortable with Tom's approach. And after the first transaction and their meticulous nature in tracking how to properly get the sales tax exemption, I subsequently used them on the second and third purchases. So the biggest difference between the prior firm I used in Florida and Aero and Marine was the detailed attention that I got through the process. It gave me a much higher level of comfort that we were going to have a extensive documented package to submit, and made me more comfortable that we were going to have very few issues in getting our California sales tax exemption. So the first time I spoke to Tom, the sales call went great. Tom had a very straightforward, matter-of-fact approach to it, which aligns with how I think. Their agreement was simple and fair. We got going quickly, and it was a very painless experience. The transition from Tom to Julie and then Julie to Shay has been fantastic. Matter of fact, sometimes I feel Shay pushes me to make sure I get every detail down right, which I know in the end is going to be to my benefit. So I really didn't have an issue with that approach. But the meticulous nature from getting an agreement signed with Tom to working with Julie in the transition to the day-to-day person with Shay was continuous, very professional, and made the process easy. Well, when I got the letter from the state of California granting me the sales tax exemption, I was very happy, especially in 2020, where California has a reputation of being more difficult in granting these sales tax exemptions. And as we all know, California taxes are high, if not the highest in America. And obviously having this benefit to obtain a sales tax exemption on a multi-million-dollar aircraft is monetarily a significant event. So I was thrilled, very excited. I mean, I saved approximately $200,000 during this transaction. So I have grown a little more apprehensive about California's taxing authorities. There's a lot of residents moving out of California that have a finer eye on them. People that have expensive things like airplanes, they have a finer eye on them. I was more nervous this time than I was the previous 6 times, but I was a little concerned because of COVID. It took longer than the prior times, but that's because California got backed up. But when I did eventually find out, I was relieved and thrilled. That's why I hired you. So that made me very happy. And I've done this before with you. I found that on this round, my 7th round of doing this, that you asked for an even greater level of detail in backup documentation. I assume that's because the taxing authority of California is looking at this with a more meticulous eye. Once again, I had no problem doing that. My goal was to do everything possible so you could be successful and get me that tax exemption letter, which you did. I would highly recommend Aero and Marine Tax Professionals to anyone buying an airplane. Aero and Marine has as much experience as anyone for a California sales tax transaction. Highly recommend your firm.
So that obviously was one of my client testimonials. Please turn the screen back over to me, Dallas.
Mhm.
So I want to tell you about a new process that we have. We've been doing things for several decades and on a fixed fee program, and then we have a new service. For anybody who's concerned that we're not going to deliver, we have a new program called the Black Card, where if you fail to receive your exemption after following all of our instructions and sending us everything that we need, we'll pay your tax. And if you're interested in that, just call Tom, 916-691-9192, and I'll explain how it works to you and what we do differently than our regular fixed fee program. If you want a quote on any kind of a purchase, aircraft, vessel, or a motorhome, go into the chat and get a free quote. Do it today. We need your first and last name, your phone number, your email address, what type of property you're buying. And if everything went perfectly, what will be the soonest that you'll be taking possession? And if you're a CPA, just go ahead and enter under your name for one of your clients. And you may not know this, but when you refer clients to us, we pay a fee to you of 5% of whatever our fee for them is. So we appreciate everything that you do. And that's not something that you're going to get any other place with someone who does our kind of business. So thank you for attending. Again, I'll take total responsibility for the mess up with the video. I know what we got to do to fix that, because now we've gone through the problem and it became perfectly clear what we need to do. So here is some contact information. You've got my phone number, my extension, my email address, you have Dallas's, and you have Seven's. So does anybody have any other questions? I want to make sure that before we disconnect this webinar that you've got 100% of your questions about the interstate commerce test answered. And Jill, I'm going to call on you because you have the most questions.
Let's see if I have I'm on
Okay.
mute.
Yeah, you're unmuted.
Or I'm unmuted now. Yeah. I don't. That was really helpful. I think it's great to take the exemptions one at a time and just
Yeah, we used
go
to
into
put them,
detail.
we used to
Yeah.
put them all together, and it used to take about an hour and a half. So we
Yeah.
decided,
Well,
in fact, Dallas came up with a great idea of separating some. So
yeah,
Laura,
it gets confusing when you're talking about all of them at the same time.
all right,
So this is great.
Make sure you come back
Yeah.
to the one on the 23rd of February. Laura, do you have any questions?
No, I don't. Thank you.
All right, then we're done for the day. If you want to take advantage of that offer where you can get a quote from us, so you've got kind of a feel for what the documentation is that we'll send you and how our pricing works, just you can use one of these phone numbers, or you can just put it in the chat with your phone number and the answers to those questions, which I'll put back on the screen for you for the next few minutes. So how many people on this webinar today are glad that 2020 is over? Raise your hand.
I think we
So-
all are.
Okay, good. What's different in January 2021 than December of 2020? Yeah, that's an important question to ask yourself, because there is absolutely, if you're in a state where there's government lockdowns, the lockdowns are still in place. In fact, our new president decided that for 100 days, everybody should wear a mask. Everybody, and he gave the specific things that you can't be doing without a mask. So other than the fact that the year has changed, nothing has really changed. Don't take your eye off the ball. Continue to promote your business. If you want any help in promoting your business, I have a whole nother company called 10X Excellence, and I would be glad to talk to you about it. Again, the calls are free. I'm looking for collaborators and partners who want to work with me and exchange clients and things like that. So if you're interested in that, Laura, Jill, just contact me. You've got my phone number, and I'm going to put them back on the screen for you. We want to hear from you. We want to work with you. Okay, Dallas, I think we're done for the day.
Yeah.
Bye, guys.
Bye,
Thank you.
thank you so much.